Okay, here we go.
Test.
Roll music?
Let's roll it.
Welcome to the Unknown Morning Show.
It's the show where we explore radio,
Podcasting,
TV,
gear,
gearheads,
and making money with a hot mic and other stuff too.
This is the Unknown Morning Show.
I'm Mandee Montana.
And I'm Chuck McKinley.
Well, we're sitting here with two of my dear friends. This is a special day on the Unknown Morning Show because not only is my co-host Chuck McKinley here, but one of my best friends, Carleen Dark-Bays.
Hello.
She is here, and we met through volunteering when we were at different media outlets.
Yes.
But despite that, became friends and then eventually worked together. And so it's been an absolute joy to know you, but you've got such a great story that, you know, we wanted to let you talk a little bit about kind of like how you got into media and how you've gotten out of media, but you had a really long, awesome career. So I'm totally blowing this first question thing. Back to you, Chuck.
Well, no, Carleen is the prototype of what we like. It's people that, okay, you've been in radio, you've been in broadcasting, but sometimes we transition to other things, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I spent a couple of years away from. This is my second stint, actually third stint if you count 1984 with KTBB. Second stint with Paul Gleiser, because I went and did just independent voiceover work for Eric Jantra for a couple of years, and I just said, you know, sometimes you need to change. Did you have that kind of epiphany, you know, as a broadcaster, where you go, you know what, I need to change. I need to do something different, and this is what I think I want to do. Did you have that?
Absolutely. Twice.
So,
and the first time was a foray into television, and then I missed radio. I loved television, and it was good to me, but we weren't able to do the same kinds of things for clients and being creative on the street, interacting and engaging with people. And I missed radio.
Sure.
So I got back into radio. And
how
then
long were you in TV?
I was in television for 3 years.
Okay.
In California.
Okay. Mm-hmm. How long were you in California when you left Tyler?
11 years.
Wow. I mean, I'm looking at the sheet, heavy duty call letters, Fresno, KMJ, the cluster in Clear Channel cluster in Sacramento.
Yeah. Where Rush Limbaugh launched.
Yeah, that's
KFBK.
Right. That's right.
Our entire foyer and lobby, all the facilities were bulletproof glass. It's cool. It was beautiful. And it was kind of like the banks where you have to walk in and the door in front of you is locked and they wait till the door behind you locks. Before they let you into this one. Like, yeah, it was legit security. Yeah. And in Sacramento, you know, Rush Limbaugh was the voice of conservatism, and you're in the state capital of a liberal state. Mm-hmm. So I have been told I was not there. Rush was already in Florida when I worked there. But I'm told that there were death threats, and so they came in and did all the bulletproof. And KMJ, similarly in Fresno, of course, Central Valley, because of the farming, and is much more of a conservative market, but you're still in California. Mm-hmm. So just out of precaution, they kind of did the similar setup there, not quite as secured and insane as at KFBK, but yeah, you didn't just walk in. We felt safe.
Well, Chuck, I'm privy to some great stories from Carleen because we have been friends for so long. But if I remember correctly, you've got a really great story of how you got into radio in East Texas. Do you want to tell it?
Sure. I love my origin story. I think it's
fun.
Very, very fun. So out of college, when I decided to get my first real job out of the restaurant business,
sure,
I went into sales. People had been telling me, you should be in sales. Well, I was selling for a company that's no longer around. Paper products.
Okay.
Number one thing I sold were cases of toilet paper. So toilet paper, paper towels. There were 7 competitors in town. So there was no creativity to the job. You were just trying to win pricing bids. And I was brand new. I didn't love it. Loved my clients, did not love the job at all. And I was listening to John Moore on the morning show in KNUE, and he was running a contest. There was a new steakhouse in town, and he was running a contest. Write a letter, tell us why you deserve a steak dinner, and you and 5 of your coworkers could win a steak lunch with us and our team. So I wrote a letter that said, I sell toilet paper for a living. If that doesn't win me a steak, I don't know what will.
I love it.
My letter was chosen.
Yes.
So me, my coworkers, we met with, John was there, and I believe Todd Tedder was there, and I don't remember who the salesperson was on the account, but they just seemed like they had so much fun and loved their job. And my crew, we did not have that same dynamic, and it kind of stuck in my head. Maybe a month or two later, I am driving around the loop on a Friday afternoon to go back into my office, and I hear an ad on KNUE, Dean Cagle talking about this new program they had called a Smart Buy. It was not a lease, it was a Smart Buy on the same model car that I had that was 3 years newer for a lower monthly payment. So I'm like, wait, what? I did an illegal U-turn and pulled into Pelche when it was the Mitsubishi where Chevy is now. And 45 minutes later, I drove out with a brand new car that I had no intention of buying. I loved my car. And I thought, wait a minute.
What just happened here?
And I heard an ad on the radio, and it made me turn my car around and spend $28,000 I had no intentions on spending 45 minutes ago. And I had a friend, the girl who did my nails, that they were the dream. They had 5 children. Her husband was an assistant manager at Hobby Lobby. She did nails. Their dream was to own their own business so they could homeschool their kids. Well, they were taking this leap to open a nail salon, and I was going to go that afternoon and help her paint. And as I'm walking in on Friday at 5:30 to her new business to be, I said, I've got it. I know what I'm supposed to do for a living. I'm going to go sell radio ads. And she goes, what are you talking about? And I said, I just bought a car like 2 hours ago because I heard an ad on the radio. If I'm selling radio ads, I can tell everybody to come in here and have you do their nails and do the tanning and buy your swimsuits. And then you get to homeschool your kids like you want to. This is all about the American dream, and this is what I'm supposed to do with my life. And I wrote a letter over the weekend and dropped in the mail. And on Tuesday, I called the sales manager at the station and said, you're probably receiving a letter from me in the mail today. I am supposed to do this, so you have to hire me.
That's how you presented it.
That's how I presented it. You have to hire me. And he said, well, should we maybe meet first? And I said, yeah. And I have a vacation day next Thursday from my current job, and I can meet you then. I came in and I sat down, and it's like, what questions do you have? Because I'm ready to start, but I'm going to need to give some notice. And he hired me. And then I started on the stations like 1st of January, I think.
That's awesome.
30,
you'd love it.
Couple of years ago, 30 plus ish. We don't need to do the actual math.
So does it go in the category, Carleen, that you've never worked a day in your life? You know, those of us that get in the job that love it. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I until the day I walked out the door, I still did it for that reason, to help people grow their business. And to help people to grow families to where somebody could come to work doing something that is really fun. We exist to inform, entertain, and help. That's what we exist for, to inform our audience, entertain our audience, and grow people's businesses. And nobody's going to die on the table. You have a bad day. It can be stressful.
Sure.
But we're in the entertainment business. It's supposed to be fun.
Buy me a cup of coffee, Mandee.
Yeah.
I've seen that on other podcasts. That's literally...
Yeah, it's like a virtual tip jar. It's really that simple. So you go to the show notes, click Buy Me a Coffee, and then you have an opportunity to support the show in any way you like. Imagine yourself going to coffee with Chuck and myself and saying, hey, I like what you do on the show. I'm going to buy you a cup of coffee. Only all you have to do is click a link. It's that simple.
That sounds like when we wrap up our 5 o'clock news show, Roger Gray and I are talking, or Jared Jones, the anchor, and I'll say, well, it's been a successful day. Nobody's died. We can go home to our families.
Right?
You know, we live to broadcast the next day.
Yep.
But I think you guys must have just missed each other.
No, we worked together.
Did you work together for a short period of time?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I think...
You were on the air when I started.
Maybe 90... Was that about 94, 95?
94. It was like January 2 of 94.
Okay, so in 97 was when they did the first big clean out in broadcast, in radio. I think it was Golf. I think they were Golf Star at the time.
Yeah, it was Golf Star.
And it was, nights, overnights, weekends were eliminated. Music was centralized. But the odd thing is we had like a 90-day window. And so I think within 2 weeks I had my Kicks gig. And so I was gone out of the building in a month. So, and that was different too, because KYKX, every station has its culture. And they were just really, really a relaxed bunch. And, when you work with Don Chaney and everybody, it was just, Don you do it this way. I want it this way. And if you don't do it this way, you may just hear about it.
Yeah.
And I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean, there were things that I picked up off that job. Then when I did program, I carried it into it, like when we would do promotions, we would have things,
Thank you, promos.
Yes. As soon as the promotion was done that day, we thank our sponsors, we thank our listeners, we thank everybody under the sun for about 4 days. But so you're in California, things are going well. You're there 11 years. You get back here. You're national sales manager?
I came in as the general sales manager.
And
then I jokingly refer to myself as Town Square's designated hitter because I changed jobs multiple times depending on what was needed. As Town Square was growing and trying to determine how to run small market radio.
Yeah.
And so I kind of was like, wherever they needed me, I went.
But isn't that a great gig? Because in terms of, you said, designated hitter, being able to put in this slot, you can say, well, hey, let me give it my best shot and see what's going on. I mean, that's a good thing to have. I mean, as broadcast, Mandee, you've done that in terms of on-air work. I've done it as far as, going from playing George Strait records to sports radio to news. But we still lean on our whatever we have to make that job go. Whether I always kiddingly tell everybody, any job that I get that's new, I always lean on my main thing, which is when I was a music director, which is putting those things to work into even like doing web work, does everything look okay?
Yeah.
Right. How's this going to flow?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Jenny, when we worked together at 99.3 Talk FM, she called me her Swiss Army knife.
Oh, that's great. That's better than DH.
Well, I mean, same concept though, right? Like it's like you can do a lot of different things. You've got a lot of different skills. So if I need you to fill in this gap today, can you do it? And most of the time I could. And if I didn't know how, I figured it out. I mean, I was doing traffic at the time, which I didn't realize how underappreciated that role was until I filled it.
Yeah.
It's pretty vital.
Very.
We should have Shelley come in sometime. It'd be funny to hear some of the stories because it's sort of the bridge between sales and programming. And if things get misaligned, people don't get paid.
Right.
Oh, man.
Right.
I remember on paydays, sometimes Shelley would say, you guys need to run to the bank. Okay. No. You guys need to run right now.
Seriously.
And she said she could sit there and look at the computer and see the money go down. Yeah. Run.
First to the bank wins.
Exactly.
She said, don't deposit it, cash it.
I never heard
Then
that.
deposit the cash.
Hilarious.
She did tell me that once, and I was like, I don't want to know why you're telling me this. Like, don't give me any more details. And then it wasn't maybe 6-8 months later that Town Square called me and they were like, hey, have you ever thought about being on Mix? And I was like, hey, that sounds like a really great opportunity.
I started telling Johnny within probably 30 days of meeting you.
Oh, that's kind.
We got to hire this girl. You need to go get her. You need to go get her. Alpha doesn't deserve her or whatever. The ETRG at the time, I think, I was like, deserve just because, you believe that nobody else is as great as your company is at the time.
Yeah.
But I was like, this girl, we need her.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you. I wanted to come work with you. I could see that you were civic minded and that community engagement was important to you and growing business, like growing your clients' businesses was important to you. And I had worked with a salesperson that I really admired that was the same. She had the same mindset and she and I became close friends and she taught me a lot about the sales relationship and how important that is and that it's not transactional and that like your job if everything goes well, is going to not only grow your clients' income, but it should grow yours too, because they're going to be reinvesting in their advertising long term.
Right.
And as their business grows, they're going to need to advertise more. And so everything grows together. And it was just really like, it blew my mind. I'd never worked with a salesperson that talked to me about how important that was. I had seen it modeled by a few that stuck around, like Barbara Biggs, amazing job with relationships, has been in Longview for a long time, you know. But Debbie Johnson was the one that really talked to me about that. And so when I met you, I could see that you had that same sensibility, and I just appreciated it so much that like you were doing it from the right heartfelt place, you know?
I tried.
It was authentic.
Yes, and I've been at stations in different situations where you see there's this chasm and almost a competition between sales and programming. And a lot of times it could become adversarial. And my goal when I took on my first management role, and even before then, just with what I could do, was always to be a bridge builder, because together it's magical things happen, and it's job security for everyone.
Absolutely.
Right?
You know what I mean?
Yes, I do.
So I never understood, why does it have to be this way? Of course, I've been told since I was a little bitty kid, I should be in politics, bringing people together and be mediator or something like that, because I just want everybody to get along. So
When I started in radio in 1977, it was very much like that. You know, you had programming here, you had sales here, and it was a lot of butting heads. To me, it seemed like as radio has consolidated, I think everybody, and maybe this is really overgeneralizing it, because of the fact that you have radio consolidation, that people have to work together. You can't sit there. There's no room for massive egos. There's no room for head cases. You just have to, you know, do your job. You know, as I like to say, you get in the door each day, everybody works their list to the common goal, which is at the end of the day, the work's done. You've put on a good, clean program, or in our case, you know, we make sure that the news is correct, and, you know, all that.
Yeah.
I just don't think that there's, and I think that the stations that have that for some reason, that, you know, there's headbutting, those aren't successful stations, don't you think?
I agree. And I believe it starts at the top. I believe that can be because management does not foster an environment of collaboration and finding mutual solutions. They tend to lean one direction or the other.
Yeah.
And I was raised up in where it was just kept separate. And this is how we do it. And if you want to get creative, that's not okay. In my initial days, and when I first got into management, I'll never forget, J.D. Patrick was my classic rock program director.
Yeah,
and
JD.
we had a salesperson who, I won't make this a long story, but she had gone out and promised a client something that was it made no sense. It was not in the best interest of the station. It put a female DJ at risk. The money there was just, all the things were wrong, but there was money attached to it. And I went to JD and said, hey, here's what has been sold. Tell me what you think, because there's no way we can do this. I agree. So I called a meeting. I want them to sit at the table. You know, we've got to build bridges here. And I took up for the programming side, and the salesperson was not happy with me at all. To the point, this person literally went into a room and laid down on the floor and threw a tantrum. I can't believe.
You mean a real tantrum?
Beating with fists and kicking with feet, and scared him. I had a brand new seller who was this really cute, 25-year-old young, and her eyes were like this. Oh my gosh, what's happening? But we found a solution that worked for everybody. And I just think that sometimes if you don't have leadership that's willing to do that's going to say, okay, you're going to bend and you're going to bend. And if you can't come to it on your own, then I will intervene. Then you're never going to build those bridges. But the best stations do that. I will say, you talked about KMJ, my baby. That's one of the places I've been where and that's a news talk. So it's not the same as a music station where you're doing a bunch of live remotes and promotions and things like that. But the relationships between programming, sales, promotions were all so tight. We were a family, and it was an amazing place to be. It grew me so much.
I'd like to circle back to something because Carleen mentioned that her team was really good at working with sales and programming and promotions.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I've seen Carleen be magical at is live events.
Oh, thank you.
Do you want to talk about some of the really cool live events that you've been a part of throughout your career? Because you've been a part of some really cool ones.
I have. I've been very blessed in that way.
Yeah.
And I can't think of a style of live event I haven't been involved with.
Right.
And it started, so funny thing is I was the sales manager for KTYL in the late 90s here. And it was one of those quarters where we were not going to hit our budget. And I was just trying to be creative with something. And we had a relatively new partnership with Crime Stoppers.
Okay.
So, and I'm trying to remember anyway, the Crime Stoppers, the lieutenant that was our liaison with Crime Stoppers was in the building and trying to figure out ways that we could do more. And they wanted to raise money for the campus programs.
Okay.
So that if there was a kid on campus that knew someone had a dangerous weapon, that the campus programs, the kids could call in and make an anonymous tip, and then they would give them a reward and a secured locker. But this was going to require money so anyway. So I came up with this cockamamie idea to do a treasure dig in the mall parking lot. So we brought in, and I started making phone calls, and I can't believe I pulled this together. It turned out to be really one of my favorite things I've ever done. We only did it once because then I moved to California, but we brought in one of those big, huge construction receptacles, and it took 2 loads of sand. I had my salespeople deployed to go get prizes. So we had leather jackets from the place in the mall. We had one television set from Don's TV. We had just, the goal was to get 100 prizes. And so then I went to Toys R Us and bought miniatures of the things like the TV, like a little dollhouse TV. So there was something, we put them in Ziploc baggies and we buried them in the sand. We had people for $1 a minute. They got a little kids beach pail and shovel, and they got to dig for one. And I stood in that sand with no shoes on and a cap and a stopwatch and a whistle.
Oh, wow.
And we would let 10
That's
at a time
awesome.
come in and dig for treasure for 60 seconds. And if you dug up something, you won that prize.
Cool.
So we also had a dunking booth, and we convinced the police chief at the time, the Crime Stoppers guy got some cops and some firemen. We had, I don't think any of the DJs agreed to be in the booth, but Dean Cagle agreed to be in the dunking booth for us. And he did an insurance policy on a little Nissan truck for a free throw contest. So we had all these things in the mall parking lot that people could do, and they brought out the Crime Stoppers mobile unit.
Yeah.
So kids could take a tour of that. So it was a really, really cool event. And we
That's
raised,
very cool.
I don't even remember how much money we raised, but it was so much fun. And I was hooked on live events from that day forward. And then fast forward to being in California with KMJ, one of the really neat things, and this is where I started learning about festivals. Our primary morning talk show and news guy, he did news in the morning, and then he did a noon talk show between Rush and Hannity. He was really into classic cars and classic hot rods, and he used to go up to Reno and go to Hot August Nights every year. Okay. Talking to some of these hot rod owners, they were talking about how for their older cars, how difficult it was getting them up in the heat to Reno. And he goes, well, hey, if we did something like this in Fresno, would you guys bring your hot rods? They were like, yeah, that'd be fun. So Ray dreamed up this event, and we called it the Rock and Rod Revival, and it was classic hot rods, 1972 and older, classic rock. Like we're talking Tommy James and the Shondells, Herman's Hermits.
Whoa.
And we did this big, there's a huge Kearney Mansion. It's a historic site. It's the site of the largest Civil War reenactment in the West. And we did it out there, and we had, I think the first year they had a couple hundred hot rods. The last year we did it, we had a little over 500, I want to say.
Neat.
We had 3 food lines. We had the big stage, music all day, and it was just the coolest festival.
Awesome.
So much fun. So then I was hooked. And then We did a couple of other things. We did a jazz festival on the river. We put on some money shows, some expos at the convention center, some financial ones, we did a big food show. We did a Day of the Diva, kind of like a women's night out type of thing. And I just really got hooked on the live events part of what I did. And then in Sacramento, that company did even more. We actually had a live events manager on the programming side and a live events manager on the sales side that worked together. I think the biggest event was Country in the Park that we did on Capitol Mall. And I want to say that's 45,000 people when I was there. They've moved it to the fairgrounds, so I think it's even bigger now. We did a tamales festival downtown on Mexican Independence Day, and I'm wanting to say like 20,000 people would come to that. Our Pets in the Park was 10,000 people. These people knew how to put on live events, and I learned so much being a part of all of those that when I came back here and we got the opportunity to do some live events here, and I was able to take control of them because we didn't have a promotions or event staff. So
you were
to the degree, well, we had a live events director, manager, Lisa.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And then Chase
Lisa.
was our digital managing editor, but he was kind of the primary brainchild behind the Red Dirt Barbecue Music Festival.
Okay.
And so then they hired Lisa to be live events, and she comes in, she goes, okay, they gave me the job. You've done live events. What do we do? So I brought my rock and rod binder. I thought this is going to be the most closely resembling because of the different angles. Anyway, so then I just have loved and being a part of Red Dirt from day one and then created some other events. But yeah, I love the live events. And for me, why that was so important in radio was that was our opportunity to get belly to belly with our listeners.
Sure.
When we weren't asking them, it's different than a live remote, because a live remote, you are trying to get them to come to your advertiser. And that's wonderful because that's needed. That helps connect the dots between our advertisers and our audience. But there's something about being able to basically throw your listeners a party and garner that loyalty and bond with them and have them connect you with something that's really, really special. That's what I have loved the most about live events.
They will tell you, you get listeners where there's food and drink. They will tell you things about your station. It's a focus group.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a focus group without being fancy.
Right.
I can't tell you how many times I've been in situations where, it's not even station stuff. Maybe you'll be sitting there. When I was younger, when I was working in Milwaukee radio, I'd be out Saturday night having a beer, and somebody would recognize me, and all of a sudden they're telling you about the radio station, what they like about it, what they don't like about it, and you have an honest conversation about it. You're not expecting it because it's your time off, but you know what? As a young jock at the time, it was kind of hammered into my head in those situations. You're always on, because you're always representing.
Always. Yeah.
It's a little bit like politics.
Sure.
I mean, you're kind of always running for office because you're always being rated, right?
Yes.
I mean, so it's like if you don't ever want to do anything that's, too polarizing to any particular group. You want to just kind of be pleasant and friendly and shake hands and kiss babies and smile and be approachable. And I mean, really, like, I don't mean to, politics is kind of a hot topic right now. I didn't mean to make it that way, but like on the basis sense of like, even just like running for city council, right? You want to be approachable. You want to be able to hear and take feedback and do a good job.
And if somebody asks you a question, give them an answer.
Yeah, even if it's, I don't know, let me find out for you, right? So don't have that answer right now.
Sure.
But you're responding and being kind. And I learned that from working with you. You were really great at mentoring me early on, that regardless of what my personal opinions may be about music or something political or current events or whatever, to just smile and nod and be pleasant and listen and move on.
But Carleen, weren't you in situations as a manager, let's say you're selling or out in the field, and somebody asks you something about, let's say, Rush Limbaugh or one of your talk shows or something they like and don't like or whatever, and you give them an answer. And I think a lot of times if they get an answer, they're fine. Because you've taken the time to give them an answer. I think in this world we're almost conditioned to where, and part of it is, I'm not wanting to be political either, but, in politics, you could ask somebody, well, what color is the sky? Well, no, I have to consult somebody. No, just give me an answer.
Right.
Just give me an answer. When I programmed, I had a few situations like that where, folks would ask about programming, and I would say, well, here's the deal. It's being decided because of this program is making the station more money. And I would say, commerce wins every time. Mm-hmm. I know you don't particularly like this, but please hang in there with us. And they would.
Yeah.
Because time was taken to at least explain a situation,
Mm-hmm. Sure. And I think that's all people want. They want to know that they were heard and that it mattered to somebody. Mm-hmm. And that's 90% of it. You know?
Well, and you're talking about big events. I mean, what tells listeners that your station cares about them when you throw a big wing ding?
Right.
And
give them an experience that is difficult for them to get somewhere else.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And probably a lot less of their money and time is being involved in it. They just have to show up, right?
Right.
Yeah. That's the beauty of radio.
It is.
So what are you doing now, by the way? I know that's taken a severe left turn, but
what am I not doing right now is the bigger question.
I know that's a severe left turn, and I know you're doing other things. So I guess I'm interested in was there a part in radio where you thought, you know what, I'm going to move on and I'm going to do this. Actually, we touched on that, but how did that just percolate?
I have a couple of, I've been writing some business plans for the last 15 years. I've always had an entrepreneurial dream down in there. When I was very first in radio, I really thought, I want to climb the corporate ladder. I want to be a vice president. I want to da-da-da-da-da. And then at some point I realized, no, I don't want to go move to New York. I love living in a smaller-ish community. Not that Sacramento is small, but it's not New York. But I've always had these entrepreneurial dreams. And then over the course of time, I would say the last probably, truth be told, since 2020. I lived through living in California in 2008, one of the hardest hit markets. And that's about when I transitioned from Fresno to Sacramento and survived it. But that changed a lot of things, especially in corporate radio, in the medium as a whole. Decisions had to be made to continue the viability of the finances and keeping the shareholders happy and all the things. So there was a big shift in the way a lot of business was done. And then in 2020, it shifted again. And the dreams that were bubbling up started to get really strong. And I loved radio still. I loved doing my live events. I loved Town Square. That company was so good to me. I have nothing but love for that company, for the people. I still stay in touch with a lot of the people there. It just started feeling like the shifts that are occurring, I'm not sure if I'm as well equipped to continue leading this team forward under this new paradigm shift as I have been equipped to lead this team over these last however many years I don't remember how many years I was market president, 6 or 8 something. Yeah, I don't remember it. And I just felt like, I feel like what I'm supposed to give to the world is about to change. I feel like I've given the best that I can give here.
Yeah.
It's time to let somebody else rise up. It's time for me to go somewhere where I feel like I can make a better impact.
Okay.
And I wanted to leave while I didn't want the industry to pass me by. When I resigned, when I told my boss and my mentor and the president of the company that I was resigning, I said, I don't want to be Emmitt Smith and stay in the NFL just a bit too long.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Emmitt should have never gone to Arizona. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He needed to have retired when it was over in
sure.
Dallas. And I felt like this is my time. If I keep staying, I think I may be staying just a little too long. And right now I can go. I had launched a brand new event that was wildly successful, broke a lot of records within the company. People were really excited. I had some people that I felt could take the live events and continue to grow them. I had a team of people that I thought were amazing on the programming side, on the sales side, and I gave them lots of notice. And I thought this way there's no animosity. We're all parting on a very happy, positive note, and it's just time for me to turn the page.
And you're going out on a win, a big win,
A
right?
big win.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And I literally, my last day, I gave them a little over a month's notice. It was like 5 or 6 weeks. And my last day, I packed a suitcase, drove to the airport, and flew to Hawaii.
She had not taken vacation, a personal vacation in 7 years, 8, 9, 10 years?
I had taken little bitty onesie, twosie
like 3 or 4
trips,
days.
a couple of Napa trips.
So you didn't take the
but
whole
long
week?
weekends. I had not taken a week.
Wow.
Yeah. I lost
As her
vacation
friend,
days most of the
this is something that I observed and was like, you should really take a vacation.
Todd, my boss, used to say, Car, you got to take some time off. I'd be like, yeah, but there's just so much to be done. And I could feel myself pushing toward burnout. Mm-hmm. And that's no fair to the people around me, much less myself.
Yeah.
So it was time. It was just time. I'm not getting any younger. Corporate America is not for the faint of heart. And I thought, I could wake up and be too old to do some of the things that I really want to do with my life.
Yeah.
And this is
Do
a
you
good
really
time
believe
to...
that?
No, but yeah, I mean, well, no,
She's
but
talking
yes.
about her,
I know
I
what
think
you
she's
mean.
talking about her passion projects and
Yes.
maybe not having the energy and enthusiasm to pursue them at, 85.
Right.
Like she would
Exactly.
now.
Yeah.
Exactly. And it was just the right opportunity. And I had
Yeah.
just recently gotten married. The hours that I worked were a little incongruent with the hours that my husband worked. And he would say, hey, it's 11 o'clock on Friday. I'm going to knock off. Let's just leave at noon and go to Dallas. I'd be like, I can't do that. He goes, what do you mean you can't do that? You're the market president. You can do what you want. I'm like, no, I really can't. And here's why. Here's all the things that have to be done today. And at one point, he was kind of joking. He said, this is untenable. It's time for you to retire and follow your passion. And that got in my head. And so I started weighing out the pros and cons and started realizing, is it fair to this team for me to stay when some of the paradigm shifts that are happening, I'm not sure if I'm the best leader for that. So it's a deep answer. I'm sorry. It was a long one too. I apologize.
What I think is so interesting about it is you tackle it that way. I mean, it's self-examination is hard. It's difficult. It's difficult to sit there and, maybe look at your boss and say, you know what? I'm going to do this. Let me do this. I think I need to do this to get away from it. And hey, you may find somebody better. I actually said that once to somebody.
Yeah, that's similar to me leaving Town Square.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there were just shifts in the position where it was like, I'm not the best solution for this anymore, and it's not the best solution for me anymore. We don't. It's not in alignment the way that it was when I first got there.
That's right. Some of the things that they needed people to do are different than what they used to need people to do.
Right.
And what used to be your strength, if you can't use that anymore and you're having to use weaknesses to get this done, that's no good for anybody.
Right.
It's a very adult thing you both really.
Can you see why we're friends?
Yes. Absolutely.
we maybe talked about these things with each other a few times. Yeah.
Once or twice, maybe.
Yeah.
Yes.
But she's been such an encouragement, Jack. I have to say, again, just a compliment to you as somebody from the sales side that really poured into programming. I mean, there were things, one of the things that I have to compliment you on that I thought was so huge, and I haven't seen anybody else do it when I was at Town Square, was every year during the Children's Miracle Network Radiothon.
Sure.
Carleen not only came down and checked on us and asked us how things were going a few times during those 2 days, she always made a donation too.
Cool.
Like she always wrote a check. That didn't always happen.
Yeah.
You're asking for your listeners to, you're asking for them to support the community. A lot of people are doing a lot of work inside the building to make things happen. But then when the leadership in the building also walks down and says, I personally want to show my support to all the effort that you're making, it's a big deal.
Sure it is.
So thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Well, I mean, your culture is determined at the top.
Yep.
Right.
It's like you said. And if it's not the right person doing it, it's going to affect everything. It's going to affect the mindset of the talent, sales. You're going to have people knocking heads, and you don't want that.
No.
So do you want to talk a little bit about the things you're doing now, or do you want to just
goodness.
talk about radio? Either way is fine. But I mean, you're working with some live events a little bit, doing some consulting.
I am doing some consulting. I actually left radio. The dream I wanted to follow is an entrepreneurial in the e-commerce space. And I have a heart for helping people who have been divorced to try to heal well, because a lot of times people don't, and people get a lot of bad advice anyway. I won't go into all that because poor Mandee's heard it ad nauseum.
No, I'm happy to let you share again.
So I left to pursue that. What would that look like? I had an idea in the online space and I started working toward that. I got offered some consulting work that has been very, very interesting because I'm consulting on some real estate development projects. I've consulted on some nonprofit startup. I've consulted on a lot of events. I've done some media buys for people, just various consulting gigs that have been, really nice and kind of fun. And I've helped work with some of the people that might want to sponsor some of the festivals and helping them wade through what makes the most sense for you and then all of that good stuff. I've ramped up my civic engagement just because that's always been very important to me. And I've been able to get much more involved. I was seated on the United Way board already, and I've gotten much more involved in the United Way, joined the chamber board. I got my level 1 sommelier certification, and I take my test for level 2 this week because I have a passion for wine. Cool. So I've kind of started a little silly hobby. My husband is convinced. He goes, "You'll make more money on this one probably than the rest of it because you're so passionate about it." But some things in the e-commerce space and the online space using my love of wine and some of the formal knowledge, but making it less formal and more accessible. And I'm planning to run for city council next year. So the 26th. It'll be May 26th with the campaign will start next year. So I'm it would be easier for me to tell you what I'm not doing.
I get. Well,
she's not being lazy.
No,
you said you're the designated hitter. It's you're a freelancer. You're doing everything. That's interesting.
What's so fun about it is I get to do things I want to do, and I don't have to do anything I don't want to do.
That's cool.
And it's brilliant. It's like, wait, where has this been my whole? Of course, I had to do the years and years of working and, paying the bills. And I'm fortunate to have a husband who's very supportive and sweet and patient with me on figuring out which spaghetti is going to stick on the wall.
Well,
got to give props to Brad.
I understand about having that spouse, having that person as your backstop. It's critical.
It's amazing.
I always kid Roseanne. I said, thank God you weren't in somebody with the law. As in lawyers, because and she once told me, she says, I want you to be able to pursue your passion. And I can't think of doing anything but this. I really can't. I mean, there's been times I did sales once, cable sales, back in 1990, and I came out of it not scarred, but probably more educated. I came out of it not thinking that I would ever criticize a salesperson again, because I found out how hard it was to approach people and say, I would like your money.
Yeah.
Even for cable sales. I mean, it was something to where, it's a product. People want cable. And I was the guy knocking on the door, hi, it's Chuck from United Cable. And, sometimes the responses were rather interesting. But yeah, that was a big deal for me.
It's not easy.
The only time I sold, but I came out of it going, these folks that do it, it's a hard job.
It is hard. Mm-hmm. I love how Billy Crystal puts it in City Slickers. When I forget what he's asked, like, what's wrong with you? Where'd your smile go? And he's like, I sell air.
Or Robert Wall in Bull Durham. Selling Lady Kenmore's. Lady Kenmore's sock.
Yeah. Yeah. But the beauty of it, and I think some of my funnest times, pre-management, my funnest times were going to see a customer and they're so excited because it's working and their business is growing. And, when I realized this was really going to stick, I was still pretty new in radio. And remember when beepers became a big thing?
Oh, yeah.
There in the late 90s for that little brief season. So a new place opened up right around the corner from the station facing the loop. And I had gotten his business. I had earned his business. And so the first day that his schedule was going to air, they had just opened. And I called him to give him his spot times. And his first spot was going to be like at 8:20, 8:21. So I said, I'm going to come listen to it with you because he was right around the corner from the station. Right. So I checked in with the sales manager. I'm going to Beepers Unlimited really quick. So I went down, and so we turned the radio up. He's got mix playing in the whole store, and it's just he and I sitting there, and it's a really cloudy day. So it's really dark outside. I'll never forget this day. And we're listening, and his ad comes on, and we're both standing there. We're like, wow. And all of a sudden we hear tires screeching. I kid you not. Tires screeching. This lady that was going blaring down the loop, and she heard the ad and slammed on the brakes and turned in and walks in the front door. The ad is literally just finishing up because we all ran 60s back then, right? The ad was just finishing up. She walked in. She goes, I did not know you were here. She goes, I have twin boys. I was going to get them pagers for their birthday. The party is tonight. I need 2 pagers.
Timing.
And for somebody who was new, I think I'd been doing it maybe a year or so, maybe a year or less. And so I had a few little wins, but nothing like that. And my client that was the manager was this big Italian guy. She walks out and he grabs me in this big bear hug and is like picking me up, practically broke my back. It worked. This man was so loyal to me the whole time he was there. But I knew the whole time I've been in media, when people have looked at me and said, I've tried radio, it didn't work, or I don't know, I know in my soul that it can work for you if we do it right. And so I've never been swayed by the people that say, oh, it doesn't work. It's like, well, I know it does. I've witnessed it. And obviously in a 30-plus year career, you witness it way more than just that one time. But that was the first time that it was so tangible to me. And that carried me through all the hardest times in my career.
Sure.
And more of those stories. And then when I got into management, realizing that those big wins were when somebody that we had hired comes running in the back door because they just had a big win. And, you know, that's actually how when I moved to California, I went back into sales, and from being a sales manager here, and I was in sales, and every time we would have a new person on the KMJ team, there were 16 or 18 of us. And the sales manager just didn't have time to spend a lot of one-on-one time, and she had a very veteran staff. So a new person would come in, and they wouldn't get a whole lot of training. And so I would kind of take them under my wing, and I'd make calls with them and go on their calls and let them ride along with me. And one day, one of my greatest mentors, Al, he was our market president. He came up to me and he goes, you are too valuable to be spending all your time with these new people. He goes, I need you to make some more. He goes, just think how well you're doing in sales, spending half your time with new people. Just think what you could do if you spent all your time on your stuff. And I'm like, yeah, but then they're going to not make it. And he goes, gosh, I need you to be greedier. And I said, Al, I just can't be greedier. He goes, dang it, I'm going to have to put you in management.
That's awesome.
And, I love that, man. And so getting that joy of seeing the light bulb come on for people and they have those wins, that has carried me through all the harder parts, you know.
There's nothing like winning in radio, whether it's ratings, whether it's with clients and happy clients. That's what it's all about, you know.
That's right. That's what we do it for. To grow people's careers, their businesses, to entertain and inform. That's what it's all about.
This has been another episode of The Unknown Morning Show.
I'm Mandee Montana.
And I'm Chuck McKinley.
This is our show to explore radio,
podcasting,
gear,
and the gearheads that use the gear,
and making money with a hot mic,
and other stuff in between.
We'd love for you to follow us on social media as well. Follow us on Facebook at The Unknown Morning Show and Instagram at The Unknown Morning Show. See us on YouTube at The Unknown Morning Show.
Thank you for listening to The Unknown Morning Show.
I'm Mandee Montana.
I'm Chuck McKinley. And remember, be kind and rewind.